This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Would the Browns consider switching from Kevin Stefanski to Mike Vrabel? And what would have to happen for that to happen? And is that the right route for the Cleveland Browns to go through? This would be a very popular move the Browns made it, especially given where the season is. Now, if Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, or at least Kevin Stefanski, starts to win more games at the end of the season, and it becomes more and more obvious that the first 7 games were marred by bad quarterback play, and this is what the Browns can do with just mediocre quarterback play from Jameis Winston, and they could be 500 or better, I think a lot of Browns fans would be like, okay, let's not change anything. It seems obvious what the problem is, and it seems obvious what you need to do, as long as that staff is willing to move on from Deshaun Watson. Now, the one thing that could get them fired is if they're not willing to move on from the ideal of Deshaun Watson. I don't think this will be the case. I think because Deshaun Watson's fall off was so stark and so steep, this is something where you can just chuck under the banner of nobody saw that coming. A lot of people thought Deshaun Watson wasn't going to be as good or worth the off-the-field stuff. Nobody thought that Deshaun Watson would be this bad. And because that's the case, nobody was able to see this coming. It's not really anybody's fault. He just wasn't the dude you thought you were trading for. And there's an easy way to go, okay, he has a torn Achilles. He's probably not going to be good ever again. Let's move on from him. We can all just take the L and move on. I think there's a clean chance here for all 3 of these dudes who are in the decision-making process, right? Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, the Haslam family, and if you want to add Deep Podesta, right? All of the people in charge made the decision. They can say, hey, we did not expect him to be this bad. This was unexpected. Nobody could have predicted this. Let's just wipe our hands of it and move on from this L. And I think that there would be enough leeway to get away from it. But if you continue to marry yourself to this L by continuing to want to start Deshaun Watson out of stubbornness or out of pure will to try to win this trade, then you're going to put yourself in a position to get fired. So I think putting Watson back as your starter, it's an easy way to get fired if you're Kevin Stefanski, right? So if they avoid doing that and the offense plays better for the rest of the season, I think they are going to be safe. But let's say the offense doesn't play better for the rest of the season. Let's say that you have to move on from Kevin Stefanski in order to move on from Deshaun Watson. Is Mike Vrabel a good option there? Like, let's talk about the possibility of hiring Mike Vrabel to be your head coach. Because of all of the scenarios of firing Kevin Stefanski, this would probably be your best case scenario to land into. This is a guy who's already been in the building for a year. This is a guy who has a lot of head coaching experience. This is a guy who's well respected around the league. This will be seen as a lateral move from firing your 2-time coach of the year, which would be hard to do. It's hard to fire a 2-time coach of the year and seem to make a move laterally. This would be a move that people will go, okay, well, don't love firing a 2-time coach of the year, but you moved on to Mike Vrabel. It's not going to be seen as an upgrade nationally, but it will be seen as a lateral move. The positives of moving on to Mike Vrabel, in my opinion, would be that he is a more experienced coach, right? He's coached for more years than Kevin. He brings a different vibe to this team at the head coach position. Kevin is a much more reserved, kind of patient guy. Mike Vrabel is a much more wear his emotions on his sleeve type of guy. Also, if you get Mike Vrabel to be your head coach, there's a chance that you can continue some of the continuity that you have on defense by retaining Jim Schwartz, which would be beneficial to this team, right? Like if you make a move here being able to retain some level of continuity will be important, right? I doubt that they clean the whole deck and fire Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. It will probably either be that they keep them both or they fire one or the other. So if Vrabel comes in, he will be that. I know there's been talks of like Vrabel's come here to learn the front office game. And I understand that Vrabel's job last year got railroaded because of bad decisions made by the front office. But the truth is that I don't think there's a job or a team that's going to clear deck and allow Mike Vrabel to be your head coach and GM. Like, I know some people are thinking that's what he's aiming for. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if a team's going to offer that. I don't know if you even have to offer that if you're the Cleveland Browns, because nobody, like, Bill Belichick has a hard time getting that, and he's Bill Belichick. It's going to be an even more uphill battle for a dude like Mike Vrabel, who has not won a Super Bowl or had the success of a Bill Belichick, to be able to get that there, right? So you look at that. I think the other thing that you can look at with Mike Vrabel is that he has two really good offensive coordinator hires under his belt. Matt LaFleur was an excellent hire. And then you have Arthur Smith, which was a pretty good hire there, right? The cons, when you look at Mike Vrabel, is that we got to talk about how that ended in Tennessee. And how this thing ended in Tennessee was the defense absolutely, positively fell apart. It went bad in Tennessee defensively. And the reason that's bad for Mike Vrabel is because Mike Vrabel is the guy that we associate with those defenses. And you look at those defenses in Tennessee, very rarely did they live up to the expectation. I think the one year in 2021, they lived up to expectations, but every other year you thought they were underperforming a bit. And then you get to the last 2 years of Mike Vrabel's run in Tennessee, and not only are those defenses disappointing, they're the worst thing about that team. And this is a guy who's supposed to be defensive minded that is failing on the defense, which makes you wonder, right? Like, it's almost similar to like if Kevin Stefanski had 2 awful years offensively, you would be concerned. But since Kevin seems to have success with quarterbacks not named Deshaun Watson, you feel good about it. And we'll see how he ends the season. I still contend that for Kevin to keep his job, you probably need to look pretty good offensively without Deshaun Watson on the team, in order for people to have confidence that you're still a good enough guy, coach to stay. But that is a big concern there, right? His defenses were underperforming in Tennessee, and he was underperforming as a defensive guy in Tennessee. And I think that is what's keeping a lot of teams from being super hot on him. This is not a guy who got a ton of interviews in the last coaching cycle. And again, he's a good coach. He's accomplished. He's going to get another job somewhere eventually. And if the Browns were to hire him after firing Kevin Stefanski, I think there is a chance that that gets seen as a positive move. I'm not totally against the idea, but I do think it matters how the Browns end the season if you're going to go to Mike Vrabel or not. You also have to ask yourself this question. Are the Browns' problems this year really about coaching? Like, is coaching going to fix the Browns' problems this year? I know a lot of us are watching the Cavs' success under Kenny Atkinson and thinking, oh, well, maybe the same thing can happen here. I would argue those two situations are different because the Browns' problem seems to be about quarterback play, because every year since we traded for Deshaun Watson, unfortunately, there are splits with Deshaun, there are splits without Deshaun. And the splits without Deshaun look more impressive than the splits with Deshaun. That's just been what it is. I think that's obviously been the problem. And last year, that trend accelerated. Not last year, but 2024, that trend accelerated to a point to where it was no longer able to be ignored. If Mike Vrabel comes here, does Deshaun Watson get to stay as the starting quarterback? If he does, you're going to have the same problems with Mike Vrabel. If Mike Vrabel is not the head coach next year, and Kevin Stefanski is, and Deshaun's not the quarterback, and maybe you go out and get a Kirk Cousins, you're going to be a much better team. is the problem. And think about this too. You look at the offensive coordinators that Mike Vrabel's likely to bring in. They're West Coast offense guys. So you're going to go do the Kevin Stefanski stuff. What would be the difference there from having Kevin to having Mike Vrabel? Will we just be changing a face to get mad at? I think for a lot of people, that's the appeal. Maybe people are tired of writing angry comments about Kevin Stefanski and want to write angry comments about Mike Vrabel. But the crux of the Browns' problem right now is the quarterback position, then the offensive line, but the quarterback position first. They got to upgrade the quarterback position. They cannot roll into next year with Deshaun Watson. Mike Vrabel or not, I think that'd be the change there. Would it get people more excited? I think it would, especially considering where the team is right now. But will it fix all the Browns' problems if they change head coaches? Probably not, right? But if they ended up doing it, I wouldn't hate it. But that's where the Browns are. It seems like that's what people think, that the Browns are choosing between, hey, if we're going to keep Kevin, we're going to keep Kevin. If we want to move off from Kevin, it's only going to be because we think we can bring in Mike Vrabel to be the head coach. But if we can't, then we're keeping Kevin, even if it's a situation where you would want to fire Kevin. And again, I would argue if the Browns finish the season strong offensively, they're probably going to keep Kevin Stefanski because that would be the more preferable situation. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.